A storm raged across the midnight sky, tearing through the silence of the ancient castle. Ethan walked alone in the corridor, the curse burning faintly in his veins. A gust of wind slammed open a hidden door, startling him into stillness. From the shadows, a chilling whisper curled through the air, carrying words not meant for mortal ears. Ethan said, "Who speaks in the darkness?" His voice trembled, caught between defiance and dread. The whisper spoke again, naming him the heir to a rebellion that would either save or destroy the kingdom. His chest tightened as the cursed mark on his arm glowed faintly, igniting pain and fear. The sound of a distant bell echoed through the stone halls, tolling doom across the land. In that instant, Ethan felt both chosen and forsaken, bound to a destiny he wished he could flee. He knew the kingdom teetered on the edge of collapse, and his role in its fate had begun. The castle's silence felt heavier after the bell's echo faded, as though the very walls mourned. Ethan gripped his cloak tighter, his breath shallow as he staggered forward. He could still hear the whisper in his ear, haunting him with the weight of destiny. Every step brought him deeper into the shadows, his heart torn between fear and defiance. He paused before a cracked window, lightning flashing across his pale face. Ethan said, "Why must I carry this burden?" His words vanished into the storm outside. He had been cursed since birth, marked as both danger and hope, yet he longed to escape the chains of fate. The wind rattled the glass, carrying the faint cries of the kingdom beyond, reminding him that his pain was bound to theirs. He closed his eyes, wishing for freedom that would never come, knowing his choice was no longer his own. Through the echoing halls, a faint shuffle of footsteps approached, calm and deliberate. From the shadows stepped Alden, the old mentor, his eyes sharp despite age. Ethan lowered his head, ashamed of his fear. Alden said, "Storms reveal truths, not weakness." The words struck like iron, grounding him in the chaos. Ethan felt both comforted and burdened, for Alden always spoke in riddles. The old man's staff glowed faintly, casting a warm light that fought the cold air. Ethan whispered, "I do not want this fate." Alden placed a hand on his shoulder, voice firm. "Destiny is never wanted, only faced." The moment cut through the dread, filling the silence with gravity. Ethan's curse throbbed in defiance, but Alden's gaze held him steady, as though the kingdom's weight was shared between them. Beyond the castle, the night burned with rebellion. Torches lit the village streets where shadows gathered in defiance. Whispers of uprising spread like wildfire, voices rising in anger. Ethan gazed through the broken window at the chaos below. Flames licked the night sky, smoke rising into the storm. The cries of the people were not of despair but of fury, demanding change. Ethan's heart pounded as he recognized the signs of war. He said, "The kingdom no longer kneels." The realization struck him with fear and wonder, for he knew their rebellion would soon seek him. The storm above and fire below clashed in violent harmony, and Ethan felt trapped between doom and hope. The corridor darkened as the storm's fury dulled for a fleeting moment, leaving Ethan alone with his thoughts. He leaned against the cold stone, hands trembling. The curse pulsed faintly, a reminder of his tether to destiny. Ethan whispered, "I am no savior." His voice broke, caught between despair and longing. Yet, in the silence, he remembered the cries outside, the defiance that echoed through the storm. The kingdom bled, but it had not surrendered. In that moment, Ethan realized his suffering was bound to theirs, and his heart ached with unwilling compassion. Though fear gnawed at him, the first ember of resolve flickered within. The storm roared again, as though mocking his hesitation, but the fire of rebellion had already found its way into his soul. The night carried a fragile calm after the storm, though rebellion still simmered beyond the walls. Ethan wandered through the garden ruins, the cursed glow fading from his arm. He longed for peace, yet knew none would come. From the shadows emerged Isabella, the forbidden ally whose beauty seemed born of fire and sorrow. She looked at him with steady defiance, her voice sharp. Isabella said, "The kingdom bleeds, and you cannot hide from its cries." Ethan's breath caught as her presence pulled at both fear and desire. She was bound by loyalties he did not fully understand, but her courage stirred something buried within him. He replied, "Why do you risk everything to stand here?" Her silence was answer enough, her eyes burning with unspoken truths. In that silence, the storm of rebellion and the storm in his heart became one. Within the council chamber, Richard stood cloaked in shadows, the firelight flickering across his cunning smile. To Ethan he spoke with practiced warmth, masking the poison of deceit. Richard said, "You carry the people's hope, but hope is fragile." Ethan listened uneasily, unable to shake the mistrust that gnawed at him. Richard circled the chamber like a predator in silk, his tone a blend of loyalty and manipulation. He painted visions of unity, promising safety and allegiance. Yet every word seemed woven with hidden ambition. Ethan said, "Why does safety sound like chains?" Richard's smile never faltered, though his eyes betrayed hunger for power. The walls of the chamber seemed to lean inward, suffocating in their weight, as shadows betrayed the true nature of a supposed ally. Beyond the walls, King Alaric surveyed the city from his high balcony, his crown gleaming cold under torchlight. His eyes narrowed with contempt as he watched flames rise from villages below. He said, "Let them burn. Their screams are my anthem." His voice carried no remorse, only the weight of tyranny. Ethan, unseen, listened from the shadows, his chest heavy with rage. The king's cruelty was no whispered rumor but an undeniable truth. Alaric raised his goblet high, drinking to the ruin of his own people, his smile sharp as a blade. Ethan whispered, "How can a kingdom endure such darkness?" His words were swallowed by the storm, yet they echoed within his heart. The rebellion's fury now had a face, one that bore the crown. In the stables, Marcus readied a horse with hurried hands, his loyalty etched into every gesture. He glanced at Ethan, determination blazing in his young eyes. Marcus said, "You will not face this alone." Ethan placed a hand on his companion's shoulder, his voice softer. "You could die for standing with me." Marcus grinned faintly, though fear lingered in his expression. "Better to fall with honor than live as a coward," he said. The storm rattled the wooden beams above, yet within that stable a bond stronger than fear grew. The smell of hay mixed with rain as torches flickered against their faces. Ethan felt the weight of brotherhood, a fleeting light in the dark. Alone in the great hall, Ethan's footsteps echoed against marble floors. He stared at the empty throne, the symbol of a kingdom fractured. His heart ached with indecision, torn between joining the rebellion or defending the crown. He whispered, "If I choose wrong, all will fall." The hall was silent, save the thunder outside, each strike of lightning painting him in fleeting light. He imagined the faces of the villagers, their defiance blazing like torches in the storm. The throne stood cold and unyielding, a reminder of power's weight. Ethan sank to one knee, his head bowed in despair. The rebellion thundered at the gates of his soul, demanding an answer he did not yet have the strength to give. The rebellion's first strike thundered across the valley. Flames devoured the watchtowers as villagers armed with torches and blades stormed the outposts. Ethan stood on the ridge, his heart racing as chaos spread beneath him. The air reeked of smoke, screams blending with war cries. Isabella fought at the front, her gown torn, her blade flashing. Ethan whispered, "This is no longer whispers in the dark. It has begun." The storm above rumbled like a warning from the heavens. The rebels surged with fury, but he saw the king's banners rise from the opposite side. Steel clashed, blood spilled, and the earth trembled with the weight of battle. For the first time, Ethan realized the rebellion was no dream, but a fire that demanded sacrifice. In a chamber, heavy with incense, Alden studied the shifting smoke, his eyes grim with foresight. Ethan entered, shaken by what he had witnessed. Alden said, "The rebellion is not your only enemy. A shadow older than kings stirs." Ethan frowned, unable to grasp the weight of his mentor's words. The staff in Alden's hands glowed faintly, revealing cryptic carvings of curses and lost gods. He warned, The curse you bear was forged by this darkness. Unless faced, no throne or rebellion will matter. Ethan clenched his fists, torn between disbelief and dread. The fire of rebellion seemed pale against the storm, Alden described. Ethan whispered, "How can I fight what I cannot see?" Alden's silence was the answer that chilled him most. Under the pale moon, Isabella stood apart from the others, her face shadowed by sorrow. Ethan approached, drawn by her silence. She finally spoke, her voice breaking. Isabella said, "My family serves the crown, yet I fight against it. I cannot be both loyal daughter and rebel." Ethan's heart tightened as the truth unfolded. He whispered, "You risk your life for those who would call you traitor." Tears shone in her eyes as she turned away, her blade trembling in her grasp. The rebellion was not just war for her, it was betrayal of blood. Ethan longed to reach for her hand, yet the weight of her conflict held them apart. The night carried their silence, fragile and heavy. The clash reached Ethan directly. On the battlefield's edge, he fought fiercely, but the curse turned against him. Flames of pain seared through his arm as his sword slipped from his grasp. He fell to one knee, soldiers closing in like wolves. Ethan cried out, "Not now, not like this." The cursed mark flared, burning through cloth and skin, its glow casting terror across enemy faces. Yet his strength drained, leaving him exposed. A blade struck near, grazing his shoulder, and he collapsed into mud. Around him, chaos blurred into noise, his vision dimming. For the first time, Ethan felt the cold certainty of defeat. The rebellion's fire raged, but his flame flickered to near extinction. In the ruins of an ancient shrine, a great beast emerged, its form cloaked in shimmering light. The guardian, neither enemy nor ally, stood with eyes that held centuries. Ethan, wounded, stumbled forward, his breath ragged. The beast's voice echoed without sound, words forming in his mind. It warned of paths hidden and truths buried. Ethan whispered, "Will you guide me or abandon me as the rest have?" The guardian's gaze was cold yet unyielding, its silence both burden and promise. In its presence, Ethan felt smaller than ever, yet a strange calm settled within him. The rebellion roared outside, but in the shrine destiny whispered with ancient weight. Richard sat across from Ethan, in the dim council chamber, his words heavy with deceit cloaked as wisdom. He leaned forward, his voice smooth as silk. Richard said, "Trust is rare in times of war, but I stand with you." Ethan searched his face, unable to untangle the lies from truth. Shadows played across Richard's features, making him both ally and predator. Ethan whispered, "Your words promise loyalty, yet your eyes speak of ambition." Richard smiled faintly, hiding his intent. "Ambition is a flame, my friend, but it burns for the kingdom's future." The chamber air thickened, pressing on Ethan's chest, for he knew this was no counsel but manipulation. The rebellion thundered outside, yet inside, betrayal already took root. In the corridors of the castle, Ethan walked beside Marcus, the storm outside echoing the unease within. Without warning, steel rang, and a soldier lunged from the shadows. Marcus fought with ferocity, but betrayal cut deeper than the blade. The soldier hissed, "The king rewards loyalty," as his strike nearly pierced Marcus. Ethan's sword clashed in time, sparks flying. Marcus gasped, his eyes wide, his trust shattered. He said, "Even those we call brother will sell us for gold." The words burned as truth heavier than any wound. Ethan drove the soldier back, rage boiling in his veins. Yet as silence fell, Ethan realized loyalty was as fragile as glass, and even allies could become enemies in the dark. King Alaric sat alone in his private chamber, staring at a faded tapestry of battles long past. His crown lay heavy on his brow, yet his eyes glistened with sorrow. He whispered to the empty room, "I was once a son before I became a king." For a moment, cruelty gave way to grief, the mask of tyranny cracking. He clutched a small locket, worn by time, inside it a portrait of a lost child. His voice trembled, "They took everything, and I vowed never to be powerless again." The firelight revealed a man broken, yet rebuilt with steel and vengeance. Ethan, hidden at the door, heard every word, his heart torn between hatred and pity. The tyrant's cruelty had roots in wounds long unhealed. Alone in the castle chapel, Ethan knelt beneath shattered stained glass, the storm's light painting fractured colors on his face. His voice was raw. Ethan said, "Why was I cursed to bear this fate?" The silence of the chapel offered no mercy. He gripped his glowing arm, veins burning like fire beneath his skin. His heart screamed for escape, yet chains of destiny bound him tighter. He struck the floor with his fist, the sound echoing like thunder. His eyes brimmed with doubt, fear, and fury. "I am no savior," he whispered, trembling. Yet in the quiet, he realized denial was futile. Destiny did not wait for his acceptance. It consumed him whole. In the depths of the library, Alden revealed a scroll older than the kingdom itself. Dust swirled as he unrolled the parchment, its words written in blood-red ink. Alden's eyes were heavy with grief as he said, "Your curse is bound to prophecy." Ethan leaned closer, his pulse quickening. The scroll spoke of an heir marked by fire, destined to either destroy or redeem the realm. Ethan whispered, "So I am both salvation and ruin." Alden nodded silently, the burden of truth pressing on them both. The fire of rebellion was fierce, but this prophecy was the storm beyond storms. The kingdom's fate no longer rested only in war but in the curse sealed within Ethan's very soul. The battlefield lay in ruin as Alden stood against a tide of soldiers, his staff blazing with ancient fire. Ethan cried out, "You cannot stand alone," but Alden's eyes held calm resolve. With every strike of his staff, shadows burned to ash, yet his strength waned. The enemy surged, their swords glinting with death's promise. Alden whispered, "This is my penance." Ethan fought to reach him, his chest heaving with terror. The old man's final blow shattered the ground, sending soldiers sprawling. In the silence after, Alden fell to his knees, his face carved with peace and sorrow. Ethan screamed, "No," as the man who had been both guide and father collapsed into the mud. The rebellion raged, but in Ethan's heart, the light dimmed. In the chaos, Marcus lay bloodied near the fallen horse, his chest rising weakly. Ethan dragged him to shelter, fear carving lines into his face. Marcus coughed, blood staining his lips, yet a smile broke through. He said, "You will not lose me so easily." Ethan's hands trembled as he pressed cloth against the wound. "You are my strength," he whispered, voice cracking. The cries of battle thundered around them, but in that fragile space, friendship eclipsed war. Marcus reached for Ethan's hand, his grip weak yet unyielding. He said, "Even if I fall, my loyalty never will." The words struck deeper than any blade. Ethan's eyes burned with tears as he vowed silently that Marcus would not die in vain. The curse writhed within Ethan, searing his veins like fire. He staggered through the battlefield, his sword slipping from his grip as the mark blazed red. He cried out, "This power will consume me." The soldiers hesitated, fear in their eyes as his body shook with unnatural force. Flames erupted across his arm, sparks scattering like embers into the storm. Ethan fell to his knees, clutching himself, torn between unleashing the curse or resisting it. The earth trembled with the weight of his struggle. He gasped, "I cannot control it," his voice breaking with terror. In that moment, he felt the curse not as power but as chains, binding him to destruction. The rebellion's fire blurred against the red glow of his torment. Through the clash of steel, Isabella appeared, her face streaked with blood and ash. Her sword dripped as she locked eyes with Ethan. She cried, "I cannot stand by you and betray my blood." Her voice cracked under the weight of divided loyalty. Ethan stepped toward her, anguish in his eyes. "You are more than their chains," he said. She trembled, torn between family and love, her hands shaking on the hilt. Her breath came in sharp bursts, the storm howling around. Isabella's silence spoke louder than words, her heart fractured by impossible choices. Ethan's voice softened, "Do not let them decide who you are." But in her eyes, he saw the shadows of betrayal already rising. The rebellion faltered, their banners trampled beneath iron boots. Smoke and ash choked the air as bodies lay strewn across the mud. Ethan stumbled through the carnage, his heart sinking with every fallen cry. He whispered, "Hope is dying." The flames of the rebellion burned low, swallowed by the king's relentless soldiers. Villagers fled, their torches extinguished, their courage dimmed. The battlefield echoed with despair, and for the first time, Ethan felt the rebellion might break. He fell to his knees, mud clinging to his cloak, his face carved with grief. He cried, "I cannot save them," his voice cracking like thunder. The kingdom bled, and the fire that had once raged seemed nothing more than dying embers. The battlefield was quiet after the slaughter, smoke drifting like ghosts. Ethan stumbled into the ruins of a fallen tower, his heart pounding. A hidden chamber opened as the cursed mark glowed, revealing a throne draped in dust and gold. His breath caught, for carved into the stone was his name, etched long before his birth. He whispered, "I am the heir." The truth struck like lightning, shattering his denial. The curse was no punishment, but a crown disguised as chains. His bloodline was the kingdom's secret, hidden to protect or destroy. Ethan fell against the stone, grief and fury colliding in his chest. He said, "Then all of this was never choice, only fate." The storm roared as though the heavens confirmed it. In the council chamber, Richard's mask shattered. Ethan confronted him, voice sharp with rage. "You used me as a pawn," he said. Richard's smile twisted, arrogance laid bare. "You were too blind to see the truth," he replied. His hand hovered near his dagger, his eyes burning with greed. Ethan's chest heaved, the weight of betrayal pressing like iron. He said, "You were never my ally, only a vulture waiting to feast." Richard laughed coldly, "And you, the cursed heir, were always my key." The chamber felt suffocating, walls closing as trust crumbled into ash. Ethan's sword gleamed, not with vengeance alone, but with the need for truth. The alliance had rotted, and only blood would wash it clean. Deep within the shrine, the guardian emerged again, its luminous form towering. Ethan staggered forward, the cursed glow on his arm pulsing. The creature's voice filled his mind, echoing like thunder. "Your curse is not burden but key." Its silver eyes pierced him, unraveling every doubt. Ethan whispered, "Then it was never meant to destroy me." The guardian lowered its head, neither kindness nor cruelty in its gaze. "It will destroy if you resist. It will save if you accept." Ethan's heart trembled at the choice, for both paths bore ruin. The shrine glowed with ancient runes, light burning into his soul. The guardian's presence weighed on him like destiny itself, pressing until he could barely breathe. Standing at the cliff's edge, Ethan faced the storm raging across the valley. His cloak whipped violently in the wind, the curse burning brighter than ever. He said, "I cannot run. I must choose to bear it." The storm answered with a roar, lightning tearing the sky. His heart pounded, torn between despair and newfound resolve. Alden's sacrifice, Marcus' loyalty, Isabella's torn heart, all weighed upon him like chains, yet gave him strength. He cried, "If this curse is my crown, then let it burn." The mark flared, fire surging from his arm into the sky. The storm bent to the power, and for the first time he stood not as victim, but as heir. The two armies gathered on the fields beneath blackened skies. The rebels raised their torches high, voices uniting in defiance. The king's soldiers stood rigid, steel glinting beneath banners of gold. At the center stood Ethan, no longer hiding, the curse glowing like fire in his veins. He said, "Tomorrow decides more than a throne, it decides our soul." The rebels roared in answer, their cries thundering across the valley. From the distant hill, King Alaric watched, his eyes burning with hatred. The world seemed to hold its breath, the storm silent before the strike. Ethan's heart thundered with fear and resolve, for both salvation and ruin lay within his grasp. The final battle was no longer distant, it had begun. The first clash shook the valley as steel struck steel and cries filled the air. Ethan led the charge, his cursed arm blazing like fire in the storm. Rebels fought with fury, their torches clashing against shields of gold. Arrows rained from above, striking the mud as men fell screaming. Ethan cried, "Hold the line!" His voice thundered through the chaos, igniting hope in the hearts of the broken. Across the battlefield, King Alaric rode forward, his crown gleaming, his blade dripping with vengeance. The storm raged, lightning flashing over rivers of blood. The battle had begun, and the kingdom's soul hung by a thread. In the heart of the carnage, Ethan and Alaric's eyes locked. The king dismounted, his crown gleaming with defiance, sword raised high. Alaric said, "You are nothing but a cursed pretender." Ethan gritted his teeth, rage burning within. "I am the heir this kingdom tried to bury," he shouted. Their blades clashed, sparks scattering like fireflies in the storm. Each strike carried the weight of destiny, echoing across the valley. Soldiers paused, watching as king and heir fought with fury unmatched. Ethan's cursed arm pulsed, forcing him forward with strength both terrifying and divine. The duel was no longer a fight for throne, but for the soul of every life caught in the storm. Isabella emerged through the smoke, her blade red with battle. She saw Ethan falter under Alaric's strike and leapt between them. "I will not let him fall," she cried. Alaric's sword slashed across her side, blood blossoming on her gown. Ethan screamed her name as she collapsed, her hand reaching weakly for him. She whispered, "Do not let my sacrifice be in vain." Her emerald eyes dimmed as her strength slipped away, yet her lips curved in a faint smile. Ethan's heart broke as he held her trembling body, the storm deafening around them. Her life flickered like a candle in the wind, and her love became the spark for his final stand. With Isabella's final breath echoing in his heart, Ethan rose, his cursed arm blazing brighter than the storm. He cried, "This ends now." Power surged through him, fire and lightning entwined, forcing Alaric back. The king roared in defiance, swinging his blade with fury, but Ethan's strike shattered his crown and drove him to his knees. Alaric gasped, his pride broken, his sword falling from his hand. The battlefield froze as both armies watched the tyrant collapse. Ethan stood tall, his chest heaving, his arm aflame with the curse that was now his strength. The storm bowed to him, and silence spread like dawn breaking. The storm passed, leaving silence over the valley of blood. Ethan stood among the fallen, his cloak torn, his face carved with sorrow. The rebels raised their torches in victory, yet his eyes lingered on Isabella's lifeless body. He whispered, "The kingdom is free, but the cost is eternal." The throne awaited, but its weight felt heavier than chains. He turned his gaze to the horizon, where the sun broke through storm clouds, painting the world in gold. Ethan knew the kingdom would rise anew, those scars would never fade. As the wind carried whispers of hope and loss, he closed his eyes, bound not by curse, but by destiny fulfilled.